Hey there, and welcome to this episode of the OncoPT podcast. I'm very excited to talk to my speakers today because they have done something that I am hoping to do at this next CSM. So I'm partially asking them for some advice on my own upcoming presentation, but also sharing all the deets with y'all so that you can soak up this goodness and ultimately someday present at your very own CSM. So first up, I am going to start with my guest, Meredith. Meredith, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Meredith Stutz. I am a current third-year PT student at Duke University. I will be graduating in May, finishing up clinical rotations here in the next month, and I will be the next oncology resident at Ohio State University. Super excited about that. And I currently hold a couple leadership positions in APTA Oncology. I am the current co-director of mentorship, specifically development, for the APTA Oncology Student and New Professional Subcommittee. I also am the current co-chair of APTA Oncology's mentorship program, which I'm excited to kind of talk about today. So thank you, Elise, for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you. And I'm going to turn it over to Naomi. Welcome, Naomi, to the OncoPT podcast.
Thank you, Elise. So my name is Naomi Klingbeil. I am also a third-year Doctor of Physical Therapy student at Duke University. I also graduated in May, and I'm very excited. I'm currently wrapping up a 12-week rotation in acute care pediatrics, which has been really a good experience. I served as the co-director of the Oncology Student Interest Group at Duke University, and I also serve as the the director of membership for the APTA Oncology Student and New Professional Subcommittee. So we are very excited to be here.
So again, if you're watching this later, these are the future leaders of the oncology field in physical therapy. And I'm so excited to have you both on. Again, for multiple reasons, but particularly you have done something so monumental in, first of all, just participating in the APTA Oncology Mentorship Program that I'm so stoked about, because this is something that we have been shouting for a long time, and y'all have made it happen, which is so cool. But beyond that, you have presented a whole presentation at CSM, which is something I know I aspire to do, and a lot of listeners do too. So can we talk about, first of all, what was your APTA CSM presentation, like title-wise, and what the heck did you cover in that presentation?
Yeah, so I think it was a huge accomplishment. I think it was really unique, especially because I feel like every time I told my friends or my faculty, like, hey, we're presenting at CSM, they were like, oh, a poster, that's wonderful. And I was like, no, like, it's a whole education session, which is a really unique opportunity. So our presentation was about the development and the implementation of the mentorship program. And so we kind of talked about Alex Hill. She kind of developed the program, and she kind of talked about like the history and where she got the idea. And then we just kind of, as a group of four, two mentees and two mentors, we kind of talked about our experience, and we got a lot of positive feedback. So that was really exciting. And just, as a student who attended CSM in 2022, it's so overwhelming and it's so exciting to see all the wonderful things that are happening. And I definitely didn't think that I would ever be presenting, especially Elise, as you probably know, like that timeline from, okay, I just went to CSM and I have all these ideas, and like the timeline to present your session is like 2 weeks after that. And so it's like really hard to get that going. So it was really nice to kind of, from a student perspective, not just fully put that proposal together, and really have some guidance from Scott and Alex in order to, get a proposal put together, and then, go through the process of getting it accepted, and, making the kind of changes that need to happen in order for it to get accepted. So it was a really awesome experience.
Yeah, to kind of add on to what Naomi said. So for those of you who maybe didn't attend CSM in person, or did attend but didn't see our talk, our specific title is called Closing the Gap, Development and Implementation of an Oncology Mentorship Program. So if you have access to CSM on demand, maybe you can go check it out. But like Naomi said, Alex and Scott did a majority of the work. So I don't want to downplay their efforts here. And they really brought us on as mentees, not only through the mentorship program, but through this presentation experience. And so with their guidance, we had the outline of, okay, what is needed in an educational platform session. And then based off of our specific presentation, okay, how does that fit based on our roles within the mentorship program? And then what kind of information do we feel is really important for our attendees to know? So, and making sure that we really tie it into that title of, not only implementing, but developing a program. So that's kind of where I came in my role was talking a lot about the development of what Alex and Scott had set up in that initial cohort. And then how I was kind of making those changes into the next year of that program. And so, the experience was very unique and very intimidating. Like Naomi said, it's pretty intense, especially as a student to not only present, but present an educational platform session. So would not have been able to do it without Alex and Scott and Naomi all there with us.
So Meredith, I'll ask you the question first. Because for the listener who doesn't know, Scott and Alex are always working on projects individually, and I feel like they frequently find a way back to each other to work on projects together, which is really cool, and I really admire that about them. How did you get involved in this project? Because dream team, am I right?
Yes, they are incredible human beings, but forces to be reckoned with in the field that we're in. So incredibly lucky. So I think Naomi and I really got into this through the mentorship program. We were both mentees. We just happened to have Alex and Scott as our mentors. And I applied to be part of the next leadership for the mentorship program. And so I had that unique role in this presentation. But, I think both Naomi and I don't want to speak for Naomi, but I know I wanted to present at CSM. And so I had reached out to Alex, and originally we were talking about maybe I would create a poster or something like that. And then she said, I have this idea. What do you think? And I couldn't say no because, what other chance would I have to do something? Well, highly likely that I would maybe have another chance like this coming up in the future. But I wanted to take advantage of it. So that's kind of how it came about. And I don't know, Naomi, if you have a different side of that.
Yeah, Naomi, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just add that in our topic, in our education session, we really wanted to kind of highlight, what does the mentorship program look like? And so we really showcase that through, displaying two mentor-mentee relationships, Scott and mine, and then Alex and Meredith's. So that's kind of my role in all of this. But similar to Meredith, I was like, how could I say no to an opportunity of presenting as a student at CSM? So yeah.
So typically, well, I say typically, I don't actually know because I haven't paid that closely attention to it. So this year, CSM was in late February, and then the turnaround time to submit for CSM was actually supposed to be today, March 13th, which is a super quick turnaround. I mean, I feel like I haven't even recovered for 2 weeks after CSM. Now, if you're listening to this in real time, they have actually extended the date to the end of March 2023 for next year's CSM. But the time between when you actually submit proposals for CSM to when you find out if it's been accepted is pretty extensive. Do you remember when you found out that your session was actually accepted for CSM 2023? Naomi, I'll time that to you.
I feel like so we had to submit it like middle of March, and I feel like we didn't hear like, hey, you've been accepted until like June or July. Like it was several months. It was like you said, like CSM had ended, and we had this kind of floating idea, but then it's like, no, you really got to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of worked together, the four of us, and a couple other colleagues. We had worked together to put this proposal, and it was a lot of like crunching in order to have a full proposal and, submit something that was very wholesome. Um, and so then it was all of that crunch just to wait. And you were like, oh my gosh, like twiddling your thumbs, like, is it going to be accepted? Like, then you start to have doubts of like, oh, like, should we have added this or should we have maybe tweaked this a little bit? But then that joy of like hearing, oh my gosh, like our thing got accepted. At that point, Meredith and I were out on clinical rotation. So we were not, going to class every day, seeing each other. So we were like just texting and so excited, like, oh my gosh, like our
Aw.
thing got accepted. So it was really exciting, but it was a long waiting game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then once you were accepted, because you put the proposal together, and that's just basically a summary of here's what we think the session's going to be, please accept us for submission. You
Mhm.
find out, what did the preparation process look like for actually putting this presentation together? Meredith, I'll start with you on this question.
Yeah, so we had a handful of things that were required. So we obviously, and not everyone elects to be a part of the on-demand programming.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another thing that we opted into. And so we had additional requirements for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we needed to come up with post-test questions. We needed to have an outline with our timing for our respective
Mm-hmm.
presentations. So we had, I believe we had to get at least to 120 minutes.
Okay.
And so we needed to show a breakdown of how we were going to get to that. And then we had to have our actual presentation.
Mm-hmm.
For the online or like the on demand programming, we also had to have our recorded presentation of that.
Okay.
And so we kind of divvied it up based off of our abstract or our proposal, what we had sent in for acceptance, and based off of where we thought each of us and our role fit best, we kind of tag teamed and divvied up the work that way. And then we met up fairly frequently to kind of check in. Hey, how are things going? What do you need help with? What do you think of my section? That kind of thing moving
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Yeah, and I'll just add that while COVID didn't give us a whole lot of good things, it did give us the on-demand CSM thing, which from a student perspective, like it made me feel very comfortable going into the actual presentation because we had already went through it. We had
Yeah.
recorded for our online session, so we'd already kind of done a practice run through our entire presentation, which from a student perspective, you don't want to have to ask your very busy mentors, like, hey, do you want to go through our 2 hour presentation together in real time? So it was a perfect excuse in order to kind of run through it and really feel ready for the presentation in person. So,
That's really cool. And I would just like to say, I really appreciate y'all electing to do the on demand version. Because, I mean, when it comes to just accessibility, like, that's tremendous. And I really appreciate you doing that. I know it was extra work on your part, but I really do appreciate y'all doing that. So, as far as when you're coming up with the material, because this presentation is maybe a little different when it comes to, it's not like a presentation on the latest research in hormonal therapy and what that means for our patients, right? This is a little more experiential, being mentees yourself and going through this program, but also leading the program. So, how did you decide what you were going to cover in the presentation and how you gathered that information into your presentation? Meredith, I'll start with, actually, let me go to Naomi on this one. I'm trying
yeah,
to
so
like go back and forth here.
that's okay. That's okay. So a lot of our presentation kind of talked about, the impact of mentorship, and we tried to highlight, you know, this is really such a good thing, and we tried to, do that through literature, but when you kind of look at the literature, there's not a whole lot of, systematic reviews on how mentorship affects physical therapy students or new
Yeah.
professionals. And so we tried to highlight those things, but we really, like you said, like we had to go based off of experience, and we kind of had to showcase, like, look at all of these things that our two experiences, like all the doors that this opened for us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this got us into talking at CSM. This got us into connecting with the Onco PT podcast herself. This got us, connecting with like all of these people in the oncology world, that like otherwise there's no way I would have reached out to these people. And there's no way that I would have felt confident being like, oh, you know what? Like maybe I can be an oncology PT, versus when I first started this mentorship program, I was like, I'm interested in oncology, but I don't know if I'll be able to make it. And so like I don't even know if I'm answering the question at this point, but this has been really good.
You answered it perfectly. Keep
Thank
going,
you.
Meredith.
Thank you.
I'm trying to remember the original question.
Me too. I'm sorry. I really got off.
Let me sum up with this presentation is on your experiences.
Yes.
Because you have lived a mentorship. So how did you come up with the material to present in the presentation? And Naomi, you answered it perfectly. So way to go.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of building off of Naomi. So half of our presentation was, like Naomi said, talking about the history of mentorship in physical therapy, in oncology, and then in oncology physical therapy. And then and then Alex went on to talk about, okay, this is what I did with that information and how I implemented this program. I spoke a little bit about how we made changes based off of feedback from the initial cohort. So that was a lot of where my information came in. I took a ton of, basically all of my part of my presentation, of our presentation, was focused on the feedback from that initial cohort. So to all of you listening who are participants in the mentorship program, your feedback is so crucial to how we continue to grow, because it's for you. And for us, Naomi and I were mentees in that. So we provided our feedback for it as well. And so please fill out those satisfaction surveys when you get them. So that's where a lot of the information came from. And then you're totally right. Like we just shared our experience. And I think the benefit of our presentation was how authentic it was, and providing those real life experiences of this is what can happen and this is what a good mentorship program can look like. And then how do you take that now, leaving this presentation, how do you take that into your job, into your clinical rotation, into your DBT program, into your office, kind of based off of the structure that we had provided. And that was really what we wanted out of this presentation, right? Is, okay, we did it, but you can do it too. And this is how you can do it. So
that's really interesting that, when I first heard about this session, obviously I was excited because, again, dream team, right? But one of the things that didn't really strike me, because I want to know like the outcomes of how the mentorship program is going. I tell this story frequently, but jokingly, but also unjokingly. I signed up for the very first cohort of the mentorship program because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like I would love to be paired with an older, more experienced therapist so I can learn about this. And the joke was on me because then I was a mentor and not a mentee. Like I signed up and I was like, I would like to be a mentee. And they're like, great, you could be a mentor. It's like, oh, I think I pushed the wrong button somewhere. But, it was cool to be a part of that first cohort. And, seeing like how things have evolved since then is really interesting. But what I really, really would like to dive into more in your presentation is like, y'all talked about how can you implement a similar program in your own capacity, like maybe that was another academy of APTA, or maybe that was, even who knows what that looks like. What were some of the maybe feedback or tips and strategies that you recommended based on your experience in the mentorship program?
I think the biggest thing that we mentioned throughout our presentation was that it's a group effort.
Mm-hmm.
No one person can take this on and have it succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It can be great, but it needs to be sustainable, right? And that's really
Yeah.
what's been the goal of this mentorship program. And
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hill, the amazing woman that she is, spearheaded this program with Scott through the APTA Centennial Scholar program.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had dedicated time and funds, I believe, even to
Mm-hmm.
um, kickstart this program. And
Yeah.
she was able to kind of create a task force for that
Mm-hmm.
initial cohort of, okay, I need this many people. We're going to work together of what does this need to look like? What are our goals? What is our sustainability plan moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I came in
Yeah.
into this next cohort. And so that was something that they really, really talked about of hitting, okay, how does this feed into our academy's goal? How can we make this sustainable? And then
Mm-hmm.
how do we need to do it to get it started?
Yeah.
Um, and now Alex would be a much better person to kind of talk to about those specifics. But I think making sure you have a good group of people and having your goals aligned with the academy, I think, are two of the big things. Naomi, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you would add anything additionally to that.
You
Nice one.
got it.
So I'm going to actually rewind a little bit. So you've prepared all this material, you've practiced, you've recorded the pre-recorded on-demand session, but you're now traveling out to San Diego, which I would normally say like sunny San Diego, but I know better based on the pictures I saw. Um, how did you prepare? Like, how were you feeling going into this amazing experience?
I think that for me personally, like I remember last year attending CSM, like we had Excel sheets of all the talks we wanted to go to, and sometimes there were 4 or 5 at the same time. And like I
Yeah.
know that we've all been there. If you've been to CSM, you
Mm-hmm.
know that of course that 1 to 3 section has like 6 talks you want to go to. And so I feel like we were so stressed and like so over prepared last year. And also just like kind of where we were at in our schooling, like we were based off of Duke's curriculum, like you're in electives, you're your school load is like pretty light versus this year we are in full-time clinical rotations, treating, all the patients all the time, all the documentation.
Yep.
And so there was a whole lot less preparation on my end. I was like, oh my gosh, like CSM is coming up. CSM is coming up. And then I was like, oh my CSM is this week. So I remember like I was so excited and I was just like, I kept looking over our presentation and like, making sure, picking out the outfit, like all the things of like, what am I gonna, I want to make sure that I come across professional. And, as a student, it just felt like an extra layer of like, I have to prove myself because I'm a student. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I really didn't feel that way at all. Like once we got to the presentation, these 3 people that I presented with in the room, the audience that we were speaking to, just made it such a wonderful first experience speaking. And it was just like, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So,
Mm-hmm.
I was incredibly nervous. Um, I am generally just a little bit more anxious about public speaking. And I had note cards that I had prepared. So I was like flipping through those at home, like the week leading up to CSM. I was reviewing, I listened to our on demand session to like hear what I said and how I said it. Um, Leading up, like minutes before we got there a little bit early, Naomi and I were waiting outside because the door was locked and my pulse was racing and I was so nervous. But then as soon as I got started and like the presentation got started, again, oncology PT is such a wonderful group of people. And we didn't have just oncology PTs in the room, which was very exciting. We had some other
Yeah.
people in the room as well, but it's such a warm and just welcoming community. So I felt very safe. Um, presenting for my first time at a national conference.
It's amazing.
So it was really great. And again, having the support of Naomi, Scott, and Alex there was very comforting as well. But I am glad that I took a little bit of extra time to prepare and practice for my specific presentation piece.
Yeah. So sounds like presentation went really well from your perspective. I already know it went really well because I talked to a bunch of people about it. One of the things that scares the pants off of me when it comes to, I think, just conferences in general, like I can present, no problem. What makes me nervous is the question and answer session. I'm so glad I got that response. That's exactly what I was looking for. Watch the video later, friends. The question and answer session makes me so nervous because I'm not always the quick thinker on my feet that I wish I was. How did the question and answer session, which first of all, did you have a question and answer session? And then how did it go? What were some of the questions? Were you expecting them? Were you not expecting them?
I'll kickstart. Oh,
You got it. Go for it, Naomi.
I'll just kickstart us off. So, like the way that our presentation was structured, we kind of had a list of questions that we were kind of we had prepared ahead of time that we were kind of going through for like a panel discussion preceding the question and answers. And so we were kind of like going through them. And then before we ended, we started to get some questions from the audience. So that threw me off guard a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, so we are transitioning now into questions and answers from the audience. So I was like, I'll close this here. We're done with the prepared questions. So that threw me off a little bit. But overall, I mean, everyone, I think we did a good job answering the questions, and I'll let Meredith kind of share her perspective.
Yeah. I remember for my first CSM, so CSM 2022, going to sessions and I was a person asking questions, but having some esteemed people in our field ask questions. And there are some people that ask some crazy, incredible questions. And I was preparing myself to get some of those. And I was very nervous because I was like, I'm just a student. Like, what do I know compared to you guys who have been in this field for 20 plus years? How am I supposed to answer your question? But when it came down to it, like understanding that my role in this is unique to me. And so I know how to answer that best and just really sticking to that. And then luckily we had a group of people. So if I didn't answer right away, one of the other three was going to. And I think being comfortable and saying, you know what, I'm not sure. I think that is a wonderful question. And I will come back to that. I will reach out to you with the information as soon as I find out. We didn't have too many of those that we had to do, but we had some really great questions that we said, you know what, that is the kind of the future of this program. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And I will make note of that to incorporate that into, future cohorts, that kind of thing. But I think just understanding your situation the best and just stay true to that. And then it's okay to say that you don't know.
Yeah. And then to answer
no, that was that was perfect. Keep going, Naomi.
I was going to say, to answer the second half of your question, what were people curious about? What were they asking? They were kind of just asking about like sustainability and kind of what we did differently. Well, I should say what Meredith and the other co-director of this program did differently for the second cohort, which was really related to like the matching process. They kind of added a couple more questions on the questionnaire in order to match mentees and mentors a little better, and just really implementing some of the feedback they got from that first cohort into the second. So really a lot of questions about sustainability of the program and how to kind of keep it running for time to come.
And now I'm thinking more about it. Other things that people asked was how is this program different from a residency or from a clinical rotation? So I think that was a good distinction, because this program doesn't necessarily offer in-person experiences, right? You're being connected with somebody that could potentially be across the country. which doesn't mean you can't have those experiences, but it is not guaranteed within the program.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, very similar to your situation, Elise, of you wanted to apply to be a mentor or a mentee, but you got to be a mentor. And we had a person, stand up and say, "Hey, like I'm new to oncology. I don't know if I feel comfortable being a mentor yet, but I think I'd like to be. Where do I fit in?" And so we had a couple of those people
Mm-hmm.
saying, like, if I want to be a part of this program, where do I fit? So that was some
That's really
great,
cool.
yeah, great feedback too.
I think that definitely speaks to how wonderful of a presentation y'all clearly had. If people are like, sign me up, I've sat through this 2 hour talk, I'm like all in. But also, I really appreciate the conversation that and the focus that y'all had on sustainability, because I think, listen, I have not been around the block that many times, but I'm coming up on my 5 year anniversary of being a physical therapist and being an onco PT. And one of the things that I've thank you, thank you. That was not to toot my own horn. That was just like, I've seen this a little bit. I think there can be a lot of gusto and excitement and like general energy and exuberance for things that sometimes like will start up within physical therapy and within cancer rehab oncology physical therapy, but they kind of fizzle out. And it can be really hard like to garner the interest back up to like keep going with the effort, especially when something like cancer rehab is still like, it is relatively new. It's not relatively well embraced and adopted, and it's work. It is work to make things that are important like this happen and last. And I would really just like to commend y'all on that, the focus that y'all had on that, because that is so important, especially for this kind of a program.
Yeah, and I think that like Meredith can probably relate to this, that like anytime I spoke of the oncology program to our classmates, of like, oh, like just casually, like, oh yeah, like my oncology mentor. And they're like, mentor, like, how did you get that? Like, what is that from? And so just
Mm-hmm.
like, starting those conversations of like, oh yeah, like our academy has a mentorship program that's available. Like I think that that really speaks volume, because a lot of my, classmates who were like, oh, maybe, not going the onco PT route, but going, some other PT route, were like, oh, like I wish I had a mentor that I could even
Mm-hmm.
just like, you know, get ideas of where to go, because there's so many avenues that you can pursue as a student, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know all those avenues, and you don't, if you know of the avenue, you don't know if you're supposed to take it or you're not supposed to take it. So I think that this is
Yeah.
really unique and definitely sheds light on how great the Academy of Oncology PT is.
Mm. I love that so much. So, how did you feel after the presentation was done? Like, questions are over. Whew, you can breathe. How did you feel?
First, relieved, because I was so nervous before,
Yeah.
but more than anything, I was so proud of everything that we had put together, and um, the reaction that we got from the crowd of people, and just the interest, was very exciting and rewarding to know that, like, especially for me as the current, co-chair of the program, of knowing that what we're doing really matters. And I mean, obviously it matters to me because, like, I've benefited so much from this program, but
Yeah.
for other people in PT and in oncology PT, knowing that what we're doing has such a big impact on other people, and to have that interest to come to our talk, even just to listen,
Mm-hmm.
was a very heartwarming moment. So
Yeah, I'll echo that. It was very feeling of proud, especially of Meredith, because we've gone through PT school together, and she's about to be the next oncology resident at Ohio State, and so she's doing such great things, and so I couldn't be more proud of her. But also how anyone feels after they attend CSM, or I mean, hopefully after they talk at CSM, as like, let's do it again. Let's go again.
Yeah.
What's the presentation for next year? Although not next year, because I need a break after all this school and everything.
Yeah,
But,
understandable.
like definitely like, oh, this was such a great experience. I want to do it again.
Hmm.
Mhm. Echo
One of the
that.
things that I have talked honestly with Scott, Alex, and multiple others, kind of who are in this like Onco PT world of ours, about there are so many torchbearers who have been the leaders and the voices and the catalysts within oncology physical therapy for so long. Like they made it happen. They established the academy. Like they made it a section when it was like there was nothing beforehand. But what we're really seeing right now, from my perspective, is there is an aging group of these very powerful oncology physical therapists and other advocates for oncology physical therapy and cancer rehab that are aging out. Like they're, and because they have told me this, I'm not putting words in their mouth, they have said, I am tired, I want to retire. And what I've seen over these past couple of years is like there is a gap of from those, again, very much like experienced, I mean elders in like the leadership sense, not necessarily the age sense. So if someone's listening, please don't misconstrue that. But there's a gap and we're not seeing as many of the new faces that we want to. And I think that y'all's presentation is the perfect example of this new generation of leaders who are coming up and who are taking charge and who are taking the banner or the baton and they are running with it. And that is so freaking exciting to see. And I feel like I'm just in the presence of the future like board members of APTA Oncology right now, and it's so exciting. Like I don't know if y'all have really thought about that in that way, but I need it sincerely. Of this is what our academy needs so desperately. We need these young, exciting, vibrant therapists who are not just going to fizzle out and kind of disappear once you start practicing. Like we need you to take this and keep running with it because we need y'all. And if you're listening out there, we need you. We need your art, as Queen Herbie says. We need you.
Well,
You
I think
are,
that that is,
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say you are way too kind. But I could not agree with you more. It is intimidating being on the, I guess, less experienced or up and coming side of oncology PT. Um, but it's also an exciting place to be, I think. And I would say for any student or new professional that's out there that's interested in oncology PT, like advocate for yourself and knock on those doors, whether it's through the mentorship program or through faculty or friends, whoever it is, like knock on those doors and knock them down. Like be excited and reach out to people to get that knowledge that you need, because we do need to fill that gap, and hopefully through this mentorship program we can help bridge that a little bit. That's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
goal, for these upcoming cohorts, is to hopefully get a little bit more involvement from current APTA oncology members to help bring us up, bring these
Mm-hmm.
new and up and coming oncology PTs up to meet the level or closer to the level of these greats in our profession. So yes, echo everything that you said.
yeah, and I was just gonna add that I'm laughing when you say these are our next like board of director girlies, because I'm like, oh, that could never be me. But like through this mentorship program, Meredith and I are serving on the subcommittee for students and new professionals. And that's not something that I thought I would be doing prior to participating in this mentorship program. So like again, I think that this really highlights that through mentorship, you can help bring us up, us excited
Mm-hmm.
students who are like, oh yeah, like I want to be, part of this groundbreaking, oncology rehab. Like I want to do it. Us students who are not burnt out yet, like we're super excited. Like we just need that hand to kind of pull us up. And so I think that this is exactly what this mentorship program does.
I heard a really powerful statement this weekend, and I know I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to do my best. So Meredith, it was at the oncology symposium that we were just talking about, and this particular person was talking about how it's so important for us to make sure that we take what we've learned and we're going to pass it on to others. And so this person said, in more or less words, you take a step back. Like, excuse me, I already messed it up. I told you I was going to mess it up. Let me try it again. You take a step forward, but you extend a hand back. And what that means is you are taking the steps forward in the direction, using the information, the knowledge, the practice, the skills that you've gained, but you make sure and you take the hand of the person coming in behind you and pull them with you. And I think that you have really exemplified that in what you're doing, because you have both benefited from this mentorship program as mentees, but you are now laying the foundation for future students to run where you have walked. And I think that is so exciting. And anyways, I really, again, I want to highlight and commend the work that you've done, because this is something that I so desperately wanted as a student and did not have. And I am so excited to see that this is what it is today and is continuing to grow, because I can't even imagine the impact that it's going to have on our patients in the future. Because for every one student physical therapist that we're helping 100,000 patients. The impact cannot be calculated. I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm. I also don't want to deny the impact that you had on the creation of the student and the professional subcommittee, by speaking up and saying, hey, I need something for me. What can you give for me and people like me? Because we wouldn't be here without you. I also want to add in just the craziness of being on your podcast. Naomi and I listened to your podcast in our first year of our PT program, on our walks in between class, when we were in, school during COVID, on Zoom. We would take walk breaks and we would listen to your podcast. We would talk about your podcast episodes. So a huge thank you to you and everything that you do in every space, because we wouldn't be here without you either.
Literally.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you're making me cry on my own podcast.
Oh yeah, you were so influential to us. We would be like, so did you listen to episode 57 yet? As I'm stirring pasta. Like, it's really good. You should add it to your list.
Oh my God, that is so funny, because literally my team and I were talking about episode 57 the other day for like a very obscure reason. So it's so funny you bring that up. So oh my God, that means so much to me. I really appreciate y'all saying that. It's really cool to hear. Mm-hmm. All right, so enough mush from me. What's next for y'all? What's coming up? What are you gonna do?
I'll go next. So other than graduating, like I said in the beginning, I will be starting as the next oncology physical therapy resident at the James Cancer Hospital and Solov Research Institute at The Ohio State University, which I'm super excited about. It's something that I've worked really hard for during my PT career as a student, and I could not be more excited to get to work at such a wonderful program and learn everything that I need to know for oncology rehab. I'm also getting married this summer, whoop, whoop. So that's, a little personal bonus. And then hoping to continue in my role as the co-chair of the mentorship program. Would love to be a part of the next cohort and kind of add on to what my co-chair and I have built for this second year. So that's what's next for me.
Meredith is way cooler than me. I'm just gonna get a job. I'm not gonna do a residency. But I have not accepted a job yet, so I will try not to say too much, but I'm planning to pursue a job in pediatric oncology rehab, and kind of hoping to develop a program at a hospital. So I'm really excited, but hoping that some things come together.
That is so cool. Again, leaders in very different capacities who are working to change the face of cancer rehab for the better of our patients. Like, I feel like I can just, I'm like, my mission is complete. I'm done. I've passed the baton. It's your
You
turn now.
extended your hand back.
Oh, oh my God. Is there anything you would like to leave little old you, first year, PT student girlies? What would you like to say to them?
You made it on the podcast, girly.
You made it on the podcast. People would not have believed it. Yeah,
We
wow.
really wouldn't have believed it. But I will say, like, before I even started PT school, I was like, oh yeah, physical therapy. I think Meredith and I come from pretty similar backgrounds. Like, oh, we were athlete, like all the PTs, we were athletes. Like, we're gonna be PTs. I
Mm-hmm,
had no
mm-hmm,
idea that oncology PT was a path that I could pursue. We kind of found out, luckily, through our school that has an oncology student interest group. We
mm-hmm.
attended a meeting kind of in the first month or two of our education that was like, well, hey, by the way, there's oncology rehab. And we were both like starstruck, like, oh my gosh, is that my calling? Like, hello. Like, and so, I think that what I would tell myself 2.5 years ago is like, you're going to be an oncology rehab PT. And like, that's crazy. Like, from the girl that just found out that it exists to the girl that's actually going to do it is really a full circle moment. And I'm really excited to contribute to this career, to this field, and kind of be the next leader.
I would tell my past self a few things, but one of them primarily is thank you, for being open to trying. Very similarly, I went to that same meeting as Naomi. I came into PT school thinking I wanted to do sports PT because that was my background, but I wanted to keep my mind open to the possibility of new things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I even let this door of oncology PT kind of show itself to me. So I think, staying open, staying curious, was kind of the key to that. So I'm really thankful for myself, for finding this amazing specialty. And I would say to not be afraid to ask questions, and thousands of them, of anybody and everybody that you can get your hands on, because that is how I got to where I am right now. So keep asking.
Lastly, where can people find you if they would like to follow you and follow your journey as, again, next gen leaders of OncoPT? Where are you?
I'm on Instagram. I think I deleted my Twitter, um, for primarily so I would stay off of it for board exam
I understand
studying.
that. I understand.
I'll be off my Twitter hiatus fairly soon. Um, but my Instagram, people can follow me, and then I'll also plug the APTA Oncology S&P
Mm-hmm.
Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So theirs is at APTA Oncology SNP, the
Mm-hmm.
letters SNP.
Mm-hmm.
And then my personal Instagram, which, obviously has my personal information and my personal posts, but I also share a lot of oncology PT stuff as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
is at my first name, Meredith, MEREDITH _ MACKAY. So that's my Instagram.
Yay!
Yeah.
And I am not on the social medias in a
Exactly.
professional manner, but maybe the next time I'm on the podcast, y'all will have a follow for me.
Way to pitch. I applaud you. Yes. Yes. All right, I'm gonna hold you to it. I'm gonna need a Naomi fan page or what have you for the
Yes,
next
yes,
time.
yes.
Well, thank you both so much. To the future doctors Meredith and Naomi, we're so excited for you. We are so proud of you and the amazing presentation. Alex and Scott, of course, were raving about your performance. So it's really, really exciting to see this journey that y'all have been on. I know I met Meredith last year at CSM. And Naomi, I don't think our paths crossed officially until after CSM, but it's been really, really cool to see the both of you in this journey that you're on professionally. So congrats again. Here's to seeing you at more CSMs in the future.